Hi, my name is Christine Fleming, and I am going to be your teacher slash instructor slash friend slash fun guide for this course, History Through Art. Now, why are we going to do history through art? Well, throughout the periods of time, throughout history, from the beginning of time, art has been a way to express what's happening through history. Now, a lot of history has been presented in a favorable way towards history. It always doesn't represent exact history, but it will tell us a story of history if we know the background of it. So first I want to talk about a little bit about the course. So the course is designed to take us directly from the beginning of time. Many people say we don't know the beginning of time, but the Bible tells us differently. Now, if you are not religious or you do not believe in God, this course is still for you. Please know that there's no way to get around the religious art, because for a very long period of time, that's all that there was. It was a great way for people to express their faith through art for people who could not read or could not understand Latin or Greek or Hebrew. So the way that they expressed their beliefs was through art. So there's a very long period of time where most of the art pieces were religious pieces. Even the statue of David is a representation of faith, but it's also a representation of the human body. Now, speaking of the human body, you are going to see pictures of nudes. Now, there's a difference between being naked and being nude. Now, we know in the Bible that God created us to be in our natural form. Adam and Eve walked in pure innocence without any clothing for a very long time. And they were not ashamed of their body. It was only during the fall when they realized that they were naked and they were ashamed of their body. But our body is a creation of God. It is a piece of art. It is one of the most beautiful masterpieces that God has ever created, is the human body. It's nothing to be ashamed of. The only time that we need to be ashamed of the body is when we present it in a way that is demeaning to the human form. And when I say demeaning, I mean it does not represent the way God wanted it to be represented. That would be in a very negative way, where something is exotic or pornographic. I will never show anything like that to your children or to you. Never. The only way that I would show something that is nude is if it is appropriate and glorifies the body the way that God designed it to be, like David. And back in the time of David, in the Renaissance time, when Michelangelo made David, that was blasphemy. He was really ridiculed for making the David, and they called it disgusting and dirty. But all he wanted to do was glorify what God created in the human form. So you will see some things that may seem different to you. So moms and dads, I would like for you to take some time to talk to your children about the human body. I think it's very important that our children understand that it's not a dirty thing, that it's a very beautiful and wonderful creation, that we are a piece of art. We are one of the greatest masterpieces that God has ever made in the human body. And we're all made so differently, which is so amazing. None of us look the same. We're like snowflakes, even though now we know that there are snowflakes that are the same. But that's different. That's science. We're not talking about science. We're talking about history and art. So moms and dads, have a very good conversation with your children before this course about the human body and what it's designed for. All those bits and pieces explain to them what it's for, why it's there, and how we can glorify God through our body. Because the Bible says that our body is a temple, and we need to treat it as such. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to move on, and I'm going to talk to you first and foremost about art. Now, Tavin had this book that showed him step by step how to draw a bird. And I'm going to show you a picture here in a second. Now, this bird, he kept trying to follow the directions from the book, and it was not going well. And so he started getting frustrated. And finally, I just said, Tavin, draw from your heart. How do you see that bird? And all of a sudden, he didn't think that that was the right way to do art. And I said, art comes from your heart. It comes from the way that you perceive things. And we're going to see that later on as we start moving into more modern art, as we see abstract art in the Impressionists and how they viewed the world. It wasn't perfect and it wasn't perfection. And again, at the time, many art critics criticized this work as just being blasphemous to the art world and saying, what is this? This is nothing. But today we revere it as something beautiful and coming straight from the heart, and how the artist saw the world. Monet made over 200 paintings of the same pond over and over and over again in the way he saw it. So when we talk about art, and we ask what art is, I'm going to show you a link that I want to take you to where you're going to learn what art is and what it's not. I think art is everywhere. I think God is the ultimate creator, and he created so many beautiful, wonderful things that we get to enjoy. And we're going to take it right from creation. And for those of you, again, who are not religious, I just ask that you bear with us. You can skip ahead. It's not a problem. I don't have a problem with that. However, I think it would be really fun for your children to get to know another viewpoint besides evolution, which is a theory. And you may believe in evolution, and that's okay. You may believe in creation, and that's fantastic too. But we all have to learn different viewpoints. With Tavin, we still teach him evolution because it's important for him to know other viewpoints. So I ask you, please, to just stick with us, because there's going to be a lot of fun projects that go along with creation. Whether you believe that God created the earth and the world and the universe is irrelevant at this point, because there's so much fun things to do. Plus, we're going to be learning what was happening along those periods of time as well. In history, we're not just going to be learning about God and the Bible. We're going to be learning how everything comes together. Not how this is one thing and this is one belief and this is the other belief. We're just going to come together through art and explore the different beliefs like the Egyptians had or the Greeks had, and all the gods that they believed in, because that's part of history. And why would I leave that out? I'm not going to leave any of that out. Okay, so don't be afraid that just because that our beliefs are Christian-based and the program in my mind is Christian-based, that I'm going to leave out history. I would not do that to you, okay? So, first and foremost, art comes from our heart. It comes from how we see the world. There is no right or wrong way to do art. It's all about how you see the world and how you see and feel things around you. Colors are so important, and we'll learn about that in a little bit as well. I'm going to send you a link to that as well. That will be part of the program, because you're going to learn about the elements of art before we even get started into the history, because you need to understand art in its form and its elements and colors, and that's going to start building on our history and why we feel the way that we do and why we see things the way that we do. Okay, so that's really important. So we have to learn that art is not about perfection. Okay, please don't try to be perfect. Please, I'm begging you, don't try to be perfect. Just do the best you can. Do you know how many artists have made mistakes and just painted right over it, or made the mistake something incredibly beautiful? Okay, so please know that your art does not need to be perfect at all. It just needs to come directly from your heart. I am looking from my notes. Okay. So beauty is also in the eyes of the beholder. And that means for you, you may find a spider absolutely beautiful, but for someone else, a spider may be really scary or really ugly. My oldest son, Josh, loves snakes. He thinks they are one of the most beautiful creatures. I, on the other hand, can find no beauty in a snake. But recently, I have found that they aren't so bad, that they are not so ugly as I used to think. So beauty really is in the eyes of how you see the world. Do not base your opinions on how others think, but on how you think. You need to learn how to think on your own and how to view art on your own. What you think may be beautiful, someone else may think is ugly. I'm not going to lie, I don't like the Mona Lisa. Okay, I don't. I don't get it. I don't like it. I know. It's almost like blasphemous for me to say that for someone who loves art. But it is by far not one of my favorite art pieces. I think it's very boring and dry. Now, someone else may find the Mona Lisa to be the most intriguing, most beautiful piece of work on the planet. And a lot of people do. So see? We're all different, and that's the beauty of creation and being a product of God, that we don't have to think the same. And in this day and age, we are pressured to think the same, to believe the same things, and not have differing opinions. And I want to challenge that with you here as homeschoolers, and even if you're at school and you're taking this course as a supplement or for fun. I want to start challenging you to think how you think, not how anybody else thinks, but what does your heart tell you? Because today we're being told what to think, how to believe, and if we don't, some of us can have our children taken away from us. Some of us can be jailed. That's the day and age that we're living in. And around the world, if you don't think the same way, you could be killed. Okay, so we are in America and we believe in freedom of thought and that you can have any thought that you want. Okay, and that's part of history for me because we're seeing history unfold before us as our rights are being taken away and how we are supposed to think like everyone else. That's why I always offer differing opinions, such as evolution. Our children should know evolution if you're a creationist. And if you're an evolutionist, you should know creation. You should know it. So you know what you believe and why, and so that you can back it up. So that you know why you believe what you believe. So, now the first time that we try something, the first time that we try art, it is never going to be perfect, okay? So if this is your first time starting art, please know that you're just learning. Don't try to be perfect on the first time. If you're perfect on the first time, bravo. But for some of us, it takes a very long time to achieve the goals that we want. But that's the point. It takes us a long time. It takes us time to practice. Okay, there's a few people in the world who can sit down at the piano and just start playing it perfectly. There's a few people who can pick up a guitar and just play it perfectly. But then there are 99% of us who have to take lessons and have to practice and have to learn how to play the piano or play the guitar or hear music the way that we do. Art is no different. You have to keep practicing. You have to keep working at it. You have to hone your skills. And that means that you have to build it up. and make it into what you want it to be. Remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about being you. It's about presenting your art the way that you see it, not the way somebody else wants to see it. Please remember that through this whole course. Please remember that your art is about you, not about anybody else and how they want or what they expect from you. That was one thing Michelangelo really, really was upset about when he had to paint the Sistine Chapel. He was so upset that he had to paint something that he didn't want to do. However, it's beautiful. Michelangelo really wanted to be a sculptor. That was his art. And the Pope demanded him to paint the Sistine Chapel on the ceiling. And we'll talk about that in a time. But just so you know, that wasn't what Michelangelo wanted to do. In fact, he despised the thought of painting. He thought it was beneath him. Okay? Okay. So, before we get started, I want you to click on the link for Art is from the Heart, and I want you to kind of follow along with the beginning lessons on how to look at art, how to be an art critic. I want you to learn about some of the elements of art. We have the line, the dot, and colors, okay? And then we're going to move on from there. But first, you kind of got to get a feel for art in your own heart, okay? So that's where I want you to start. Now, when we talk about perfection, I'm going to have you do something that is completely out of the norm for you. I have to take you out of your comfort zone in order for you to realize that this is not about perfection. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do, now what you should have is all of your supplies, and that video will be at the beginning of this presentation. If you haven't looked at that, please go back and make sure that you have all of your supplies. Okay, so what I want you to do is get your sketchbook out, and I want you to do something really, really fun and weird. Okay, which is your dominant hand? Now, when I say your dominant hand, I mean which hand do you use to write or to use the most? I use my right hand. My right hand is dominant. That means I write with it. It means that when I use my mouse for my computer, I use my right hand. It means when I chop things, when I cook, I use my right hand to chop. Many of you are left-handed. That's your dominant hand. That's what you use, is your left hand. Nothing wrong with that. However, what I'm going to ask you to do in your sketchbook is I want you to take your non-dominant hand, which mine would be my left hand, and I want you to draw a picture. I don't care what it is. Just draw a picture with your non-dominant hand and see what you come up with. That should be really fun, okay? Then after that, I want you to turn the page, and I want you to start on a fresh new page. This time, I want you to take the pencil and put it in your mouth, and I want you to draw something with your mouth. Maybe the sun or the clouds or just a simple shape, but just try it. Then, when you're done with that, I want you to go on another new page, and this time, I want to see if you can draw the sun and the stars with your toes. I'm challenging you to be imperfect, because nobody's perfect. God is perfect. You're not perfect. You never will be. Don't strive to be perfect. I think I need that lesson myself. So that is your first art project through all of this. Now, the other art projects that I'm linking you to for Art is in the Heart and the other ones that I mentioned, there will be art projects along with that as well. That's why I kind of want you to start this ahead of time. And those are free right now. Okay, those are free until September. And then I'm going to make you pay for them. Sorry. Okay, So I would jump on board right now and get those classes for free and start working on them, start learning about art so that we can start moving into history. And then I want you to do these projects. Now, you can go to my Facebook page, and I'm actually going to start a new Facebook page specifically for this course so that you can post your art, because I want to see what you're doing. I want to know how you're doing. I want your feedback. I want to see your art. I want to hear your stories. I want to know what you're thinking through this whole entire process. So go ahead and start with those things that I mentioned, those 3 things. First of all, draw something with your non-dominant hand. Second, draw something with your mouth, with your pencil or marker in your mouth. And then the third is try to draw the sun and the stars and the moon and clouds with your toes. Do you know how you would have to do that? You have to put the marker or the pencil in between your toes. Now you may think, that's impossible, Tristine. It's not impossible. God says nothing is impossible. And I know people who have no arms, who play the piano with their toes, or draw art, the most beautiful art, with their toes, with their feet. So it is possible. You need to know that it's possible. All things are possible. So get started on these things, and we'll see you soon.